I'll start pretending like I know stuff.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Tonight we have Tracy Boggiano that's going to be speaking on DBATools and DBACHECKS. Tracy is, I'm cheating here. I'm looking for my write-up I have on you.
I can do it for you if you want me to.
Oh, bless you, dear.
I supposedly am a Microsoft MVP, but that's not really what's important. I volunteer with foster kids. That's really my passion in life. I volunteer with the North Carolina Guardian Ad Litem program. I've been doing that for 18 years. And I'm blessed to have been volunteered with 63 kids at this point. And that's really my passion outside of work. And I volunteer with the Disability Rights of North Carolina as well in our mental health council. Some of you might have seen I do some mental health presenting in the community as well. And I do lots of other fun volunteering stuff. Other than that, I actually do know some stuff about SQL Server, and that's really why you guys came tonight. So we'll move on to the presentation. And then there's a bio slide in there. We'll just skip on past that. So we're going to talk about SQL Server configuration with DBATools and DBACHECKS. There goes the bio slide I was talking about, and a better picture of me than what I look like today. So I whacked my hair off incorrectly because my hairstylist is on maternity leave. But you can reach me on Twitter just as my full name. I misspelled superhero. That sucks. But the domain name DBASuperhero.com, because someone dubbed me that superhero title because of my volunteer work and corrupt databases and all that good stuff. My email address is Tracy at TracyBoggiano.com as well. And then you got all the nice pretty logos. I put together this presentation because a lot of times you have SQL servers that are configured differently because you set them up at different points in times, and you want your SQL servers all configured nice and the same and consistent everywhere. You want them all to have the same recommended amount of memory, the same max stop settings, the same household for parallelism setup. I couldn't remember what the acronym stood for a second, and different things like that. And that's hard to do without having something that can actually test and make sure those things are actually set up correctly. And that's where DBATools and DBACHECKS can come in, and you can run it across all your servers and get a nice Power BI report back. It can be emailed to you. It can be stored in a table. You can archive the information. You can also use it for like security compliance or some sort of thing to make sure that, people aren't randomly going in and changing things by checking it on a weekly basis and having those results sent to you when they're altered and saying, hey, we're getting out of compliance with our standard setup here. What's going on, and try to figure out where your gaps are and making sure people are doing what they're supposed to do as far as your configuration goes. So that's where these tools can fall into place. So we're going to start off with one important thing that we need to make sure everybody does correctly when installing it, because if you install it by just installing the module DBACHECKS, you'll end up with the wrong version of Pester, and it will not work. And so I always put this first even before I introduce DBACHECKS and DBATools, because it's that important. The newest version of Pester, the 5.0, whatever version it is now, is not compatible with DBACHECKS. They made a whole bunch of breaking changes with it. So in order to install the module for DBACHECKS, please install Pester 4.10 or earlier first, and then you can actually install the modules for DBACHECKS, and that'll actually install DBATools down with it, and you'll be all set and good and running, and you won't have to ask people why DBACHECKS doesn't work on the SQL Slack channel, or Google it and find my presentation like a few people have. And then you can install the module DBACHECKS. So, because like I said, Pester 5 breaks everything. So now we got that over with, we can actually discuss what these tools are, because it was that important. So DBATools is this very nice open source PowerShell module that was put together by the SQL community. It started over in Europe by Tracy, Rob Sewell contributed to it a lot. It has 500 plus PowerShell commands, trying to do everything in PowerShell that you can possibly do to SQL Server at this point in time. The backbone of it's using the SMO. It does just about everything you can think of. It's made to do anything that you can think of as far as that you can do in SSMS. You can create AGs. You can create your clusters. You can manage a query store with it. I can't think of anything you can't do with it, to be honest. You can do resource governor. You can do a lot with your CMS servers as far as if you got CMS set up, you can actually use it to pull back your list of servers in a group and then run invoke query against it and pull back data or anything else you need to pull back from there. It's just an amazing amount of commands that you can do and automate stuff. You can use it to patch your servers automatically. You can tell it, hey, I want the newest service pack, and it'll actually go up and download it off the internet and pull it down and patch your server for you if your server has access to the internet or whatever box you're running it from has access to the internet. Or you can put the patch in, a central location, and it automatically knows, hey, that file happens to be the patch if it's named correctly, and it'll just do all this magical stuff for you. It's just awesome. But then you coupled all this with DBACHECKS, and you can see that you'll be able to do even more awesome stuff by using it behind the scenes to actually check for the things that it's doing. So, for example, there's a lot of git commands in DBATools that can say, get this property and see what it actually is on the server, so I can make sure it actually meets what I want it to be. So we will get what the max memory is and say, hey, does this meet what the standard needs to be for SQL Server using the formulas that are recommended based on what the settings supposed to be for 64 gigs of memory on the server, for example. So we will combine these tools behind the scenes. It will just automatically know, hey, when it's 64 gigs of memory, it's supposed to be set to X. When it's 128 gigs of memory, it's supposed to be set to Y, and so forth. So when you get to DBACHECKS, again, this is open source as well. So these are free tools. Rob Sewell started this. SQL communities contributed to it. I contributed a lot of code to it as far as doing security compliance around CIS, federal government fun stuff. I've got a project in for STIG now that I'm actually going to be writing for it. And by default, it was created so you could just check the default configuration of SQL Server, but I've added the security compliance stuff. They started down that route of doing security compliance, and they kind of stopped a little bit on it. And then I picked it up and did the CIS stuff. And I've got a project sitting out there to do STIG. It's pending me doing some other community-based stuff. But they also provided the output to you when they created it to go to Power BI or to a table or even to a JSON file. We're using that to actually load up into a system so that we can create using Kusto at my current company, so that we can use it for other internal stuff that we do. So it's got quite the flexibility of stuff that you can do. You can have it automatically emailed to you, but behind the scenes, it's all using DBATools functions where it can to do whatever it needs to do. There are some Windows-based things it does as well, so it can't use all DBATools. So, and the framework that it's using for testing is called Pester. That's just another, as we talked about at the beginning when we installed it, is another PowerShell module. And it's just made for testing things. It's where it says, failed seed, things like that. And it's just a PowerShell module that's made for testing things. So, and DBACHECKS has a very few commands loaded into it, unlike the 500 plus commands that DBATools has. So there's not much to learn to use DBACHECKS. This is all it has right here. Most of the one we will be using is just the invoke command to run the check. There's a few commands I'll show you as far as setting the configuration so that you can actually set things that'll stay in place, like what your melt operator should be on every server and things like that, so that when it's testing, you don't have to tell it every time what the default value should be. You also have the reset command so that if you want to set it up differently for like QA or test, you can actually run it in between and change it for your different tests, because you can actually set up different environments if you wanted to. That gets a little bit beyond the scope of this presentation is setting up different environments and saving different files, because I just kind of went through the basics of how to clean up a report and use DBATools to get your system set up to be the default configuration for your server, and kind of show you the different commands of DBATools and how DBACHECKS kind of plays into that. So these are the kind of different checks that it will do. You can use the get DBC check to see a long list of the checks it'll do. At the top, we'll see a bunch of different SQL agent checks, checking whether you've got your database mail enabled, what your service agent account should be, making sure those are consistent. You don't want to be using local system, for example. Sometimes on every server, you don't want to be using different accounts everywhere. What your database operator actually is, what your job owner should be, because you don't want like people owning the jobs and then them leaving the company and different things like that. So it has a long list of different checks already built into the system. You can actually write your own custom checks as well and put them in folders. On the GitHub page, there's a link to different blogs that people have written around DBACHECKS, and there's a link to one that Shane O'Neill wrote, I think, that is around doing the custom checks. So you can check that out if there's things in here that you want to check that aren't part of DBACHECKS, and actually customize it as well down to where you're checking things in addition to what it has built in. So this is the basic command you would run to just see everything that it would spit out that it has available to you, and then you can customize it from there, and you can exclude things you don't want it to check. For example, if you don't use Query Store, you can exclude it so it doesn't tell you that Query Store is not turned on, because by default it's going to check and make sure Query Store is turned on, because that is a recommended setting these days. So you can tell it to exclude it. Then you would just tell it has a command that will automatically start Power BI for you, because that is the default for the way I'm passing it through, is to update the Power BI data source on the system, and then start Power BI for me because I'm lazy and don't want to click on it. I mean efficient, And then once it starts Power BI up, you just hit the refresh button and it loads your data in for you, and you got a nice report to look at. And this is what a basic report looks at. When I first put together this presentation, it would produce 436 failures. So we'll see how many failures we have now. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk through DBATools and fix most of the failures. I think we get it down into the 20s pretty quickly through this hour or 45 minutes or so we have left, depending on questions. So I think we have at least 10 minutes, 15 minutes for questions as we go through. That way people have time to ask questions about PowerShell, DBATools, and things like that. So we'll move into demos now. That's all my slides. Gotta make this window. No, this window. No, come on. This window. There we go. This is our nice Power BI report. Don't remember if I hit refresh or no, I didn't, because it has Rob's name on there. Let's see what our failures are. Oh, I didn't even find my file. Why is that? Oh, you're so bad. You're so bad. You found it an hour ago. And I ran through this whole entire thing. Oh, you're still running. Why are you still running? You shouldn't still be running. This is a demo failure right in front of a live audience. It's still running, people. And I don't know why. And it takes forever to run, too. It's only supposed to take a minute to run. Not that long. We will start it up in a minute after we go through the basics. And my terminal. Where's my terminal? There goes my terminal. There we go. We need to be able to see code. Thank you. Yes, code's not going to cooperate today. So as part of my scripts, I do have the installs in here. We've already installed everything. I did thoroughly update DBACHECKS and DBATools right before and run through demos. Everything seemed to work correctly. So as part of this, I did want to show what commands were available via DBATools, just to give everybody a basic understanding of the things that were available and a way for you to be able to search for them. So I do have a command in here for you to be able to bring up all the commands that are available with DBATools into a grid. And once you have those up, you can actually do a search in here and find different things based on their synopsis. You can search for AGs and things like that and find things. And my Zoom's not working either. Golly, it's working. That's right, Zoom on my last call crashed my machine. I hate Windows sometimes. Now it's way
Tracy?
too zoomed. Yes.
Yeah, we have a question. Do you need to install this in all your servers or just one?
You can install it just in one location.
Tracy, you still there?
I think we lost Tracy, but I'm pretty sure she'll try to get back here as soon as she can.
Yeah. Provided she knows that we lost her. Somebody said that she rebooted her VM. Oh, may have rebooted. Well, this has never happened before.
Yeah, this is new for me, so I don't know how to fill that error. I feel like we're on a rain delay at a baseball game or something.
Yeah. We're getting to the good part with this because I know Trace was talking about using this for the CIS checks, and where I work, we're heavily compliant and heavily regulated, and so they being the auditors want to make sure that we're compliant with all the CIS baselines. So that's a handy thing that I want to try out.
Has anybody looked at the month of lunches book for DBATools?
No, I have not.
Yeah, if you go to manning.com, they're publishing, Chrissy Lemaire is publishing a book on DBATools in a month of lunches.
Mhm.
And she's got, I think, 27 of the 29 chapters written. So it's almost done.
I'm gonna try to contact DM Tracy on Twitter. Oh, here she is. Okay, and she's back.
Welcome back, Tracy.
Yes, yes, indeed.
I'm back. Even got my stuff back up except for the PowerPoint, which we don't need. So. Okay, where was I? I don't know, but we'll start where I should have been. Okay, I did get the Power BI report up while everything was doing all its stuff. So this is what the Power BI report should look like. It has 439 failed things. So we are going to walk through and clean all this stuff up. It's going to look beautiful after we're done. Well, more beautiful. It's still going to have some stuff left over, but that's to be expected. See, it actually finished running. I don't know why it didn't finish running last time. But back to our little bit of our basic stuff. We had this open. And we could quit doing weird stuff. So we can see our different commands that we had available. A lot of the commands that DBACHECKS uses are all these git commands, so I can actually see the properties of different things, like checking what the max memory is will be on here somewhere. Checking what like database names are, so behind the scenes sometimes it won't be checking system databases for things like on Query Store. It won't be checking the master database in DB database or the model database for Query Store because it can't be enabled there, and different things like that. So most of the time, the behind the scenes you'll see these git commands used. We'll be using different commands like that to actually fix things. So you'll get familiar with some of the different DBATools commands. But as you can see, there's a slew of them, as I like to say. So there's a lot of different things you can use these for. So this is a good presentation to get your feet a little bit wet with DBATools if you've never used it before. But this is kind of how you can actually find a command, is you can look at a tag and say, hey, I want to see all the DBATools commands that have to do with the SQL agent. And again, we can bring this up in the grid. Won't work on your Linux machines, but you know, hey, we're mostly Windows people anyways. So these are all the ones that were tagged to have to do with the SQL agent. And I choose the agent because it has a lot less scrolling than some of the other tags. But this gives you a good view of everything that you can do with the SQL agent. And we're going to have to do some things around SQL agent to clean up some of those alerts, like, you know, setting up a mail operator and things like that. And I did write some commands around that to help with this presentation. There's still some few more that need to be written. Should I close that? So then we actually have all the different checks that DBACHECKS can run. Now I'm trying to actually run check DBs in the middle of the presentation. Weird. But these are all the different checks you can run. As you can see, there's quite a few of those set up. There's some around the agent. There's some around the database, checking that the correlation set up, checking to make sure there's not too many suspect pages sitting in your MSDB, checking to make sure there's the last time a good check DB was actually ran against a database, making sure your recovery model is probably set in full mode, making sure your page verifies checksum instead of like not, making sure you don't have auto close turn on or auto shrink, different things like that. Then you got HADR stuff, making sure you have good cluster health. You got different instance settings, such as having your DAC turned on or off in this case because of security compliance. Making sure you don't have too many memory dumps sitting out there. Making sure you're on a supported build. For security compliance, having your SAs renamed disabled and non-existent. Different things like that. So this is a good way just to get a quick list so you can scroll through and look at them. Now, to get help around PowerShell, there's get help commands. I'm not going to go through each one of these just because we lost a little bit of time and I want to leave room for questions and stuff. But if you ever need help with a particular PowerShell command, you can do get help. The DBATools team has done an excellent job of making sure there is help available with examples of every command in there and different types of examples. So there's more than one most of the time. And you can get help on just about any command. This happens to be the one around spconfigure. So you can see those and get online help and get the full help or just detailed help and examples or just the basic help. So we'll take a look at the basic help just so we have at least one that we looked at. Where's the blue thingy still showing up? Go away. Oh, you're gonna make me mad by staying there? Seriously? Okay. You did go away eventually. But there goes the basic help. I don't know what VS Code's doing today, but it's being weird. So it tells you the syntax of all the parameters and gives you a brief description of everything. And then, like I said, you can actually get examples. That one's always, I always find that one better. That blue thingy would go away. Well, we can at least see the bottom one that gives us an example of how to pass in a server, give it an actual SQL credential, change a particular parameter or get particular parameters and exclude a parameter and get it to an out grid. So, and it explains in detail what it's actually doing. So I'm going to close VS Code so I can get rid of that blue thingy. I'm going to go nuts tonight with this. Sorry, my migraine's like, yeah, do that. Okay. Now, as we see in our Power BI report, and I'll show it to you again just in case you don't remember, because I need to close it anyways, is SQL Agent is taking up quite a bit of these with 39 alerts. Red thingies up here. So we're going to fix those first. So I have a SQL Agent file here where we will run through these. First, I'm just going to clear off things, set my variable. I would normally go ahead and run the report again, but we just did that, so we don't need to. So first thing we're going to do is just actually set some variables around database mail, because that's most of the alerts that we got sitting there is around database mail, because it's the first thing you normally do when you set up a SQL server. At least that's what I do, is get some alerts going and have our mail ready so I can see what's going on. So what I generally do on my server that I'm using, or my jump box that I'm using to check things, is I set up my parameters for DBACHECKS to say, okay, this is what my database mail is always going to be named. This is the email address it's going to be using. This is my mail server. This is my operator name, and this is my alert email. There's different configurations that you can set inside of DBACHECKS. They're all set using this command, and they all have different value names, and you can actually get them using this command, and we will do that after we set these so you can see what they're all set to. And this way you can actually go through and see a list of the ones you want to set and compare against. So we're going to go ahead and set each of these variables here, and then we'll actually view them. And then you'll be able to see all the different ones I've actually already got set as well. Now these are a list of everything that is set. One is like making sure different alerts are actually turned on the machine. What severity alerts are available. You can always change that down. So some companies don't like to get anything below a 19. You know, completely up to you. Job failures, how many days since the last job failed that you want to check against. Different, how many maximum job histories that you want. As far as rows, 1,000, that's the default. -1 means it's disabled. Things like that you want to check. If the database exists, you may have a DBA database that you want to make sure always exists on the server, so you can add that here. Excluding databases from Query Store, you can add those in there. There's a whole slew of different things you got in here. The actual names of your all the hologram scripts, because you may change those to something that better suits your system. And there's a bunch of other things around here around policies and different things like that on how you want your file growths to be set and things like that, what you want your max stop to be set to, and what your VLF count should be, virtual file sizes. So you got a slew of different things you can set policy-wise that you want it to check against. So there are all different things you can configure as you get more advanced in doing this. So we're going to start cleaning up the SQL agent. One thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get us a server object back so that we can actually change some configuration. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check, and we're going to turn database mail on, because that's one of the things it said was not turned on. Is we haven't done that yet because we hadn't configured the server. So now we've got database mail turned on. If we scroll down and show you what I'm doing, would be helpful. Why is it doing weird stuff? But here goes the new value of 1, and the old value is 0. We're going to create us a mail account if it doesn't already exist. Now we got us a new mail account. Don't make me type clear host after everything I do. Now we're going to create a mail profile. Now we got one of those. And then we're going to create our operator so that it can actually send us mail. Then we're going to create a fail-safe operator, and we're not going to completely use DBATools for this because fail-safe operator is not in there. So we're actually going to pull back the agent server to us using DBATools, and then use some SMO around that to get it set. I've been meaning to actually write code for that, but haven't done it yet for DBATools. And then we're actually going to set alerts for us. And we're going to use DBATools and SMO to do that. So we need different alerts set up for us so that we can clean up that report, because we have no alerts at all set up at this point. So we're going to generate alerts for 16 through 25. And as you've seen in that grid, it was looking for alerts 18, 23, 18, 24, and 18, 25, which are all due to like corruption type things, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I actually received one. I've added 1829 as well to my list of ones I'd like to get. So we're going to run through and let it just loop through and create those alerts as well on the server. And then we can actually go into SSMS and see those as well as being created. Show me what VS Code is doing. Wow, it's being so bizarre today. I can't even tell if it's finishing running. I guess. So we'll let it run the Power BI while we go in here and verify that we have alerts now. So we generated all these alerts. We do have an operator. We don't have any jobs yet. So we haven't got to all the scripts yet. So this usually takes about a minute or so to run, sometimes 2 minutes. So I usually try to sneak in and get some questions, if there are any, if I haven't stuttered too much while things are acting wacky. So I see some in the chat. Do I need to answer those? Does DBATools work with Azure SQL? Yes. You can actually pass in SQL credentials so you can connect to an Azure instance. Is the data for the Power BI report stored in SQL or local? The Power BI report's actually generated to a JSON file, so it pulls from JSON, but there is a way to store the data in SQL, but it will not be reported into the Power BI that way. Did that make sense for everybody? Anything else I can help out there? See, there goes the file it's actually stored in right there on the screen. It just stores it in a local temp directory. Because there's no way to tell it where to actually, as part of this process, there's nothing to say, hey, put it in this particular server table, blah, 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 blah. That would take some really extra configuration, but you could change all that if you wanted to, but that would take some work for sure.
Well, this is DBACHECKS. This is something that I could use today. Yeah, I'm setting up a server for that. It's a brand new database server, and what I use right now is a checklist, and this kind of replaces the checklist.
Yep. Yep, you have whatever you want your configuration to be, and you have your scripts via DBATools to set it, and then you run this to make sure it's what you want it to be. SPN, if I remember correctly, I might have been asked that question and have a link to that in one of the demonstration scripts. Might be down here at the bottom because this might be the answer to your question right here. Go check out that link and let me know.
Yeah.
I think I've been asked that question. I don't 100% remember if that was the answer to it though, Tim. So I seem to remember having to be asked that question before, but I don't 100% remember if that was the answer. So. But that's related to it in some way, I believe. So, but that's a blog article about SPN and Kerberos and stuff like that. So, I may answer your question. But now we got it down to 440. I don't remember where we were at. So, but we're down because we don't have 39 up at the top. So now our biggest meanie is Olive Halloran. What did he do to us? The big bully? No, he's not really a bully, but we don't have a scripts installed. And by default, that's what everybody seems to be using in the world. So it's asking for it. So we're gonna go ahead and install his scripts, and DBATools makes it so easy.
Now, somebody asked a question here about where's the data stored?
Oh yeah, I answered that. But it's actually stored in a JSON file. So if you on the screen here, I highlighted it. It stores it in a temporary JSON file location. There's ways to store it in SQL, but by default, I just run it to a JSON file for the Power BI report. So if you're going to use the Power BI report, by default, you're going to just let it run to a JSON file. And there's ways to have multiple JSON files and merge them together in the Power BI report and stuff like that, but I'm not demonstrating that. So, but there's ways to have multiple ones and show them at the same time in the Power BI report and merge them together and stuff like that. Do you add your tables from your GitHub site to use with all the host scripts with this demo? All my scripts are on my website already, yes. So you can go to my presentations website and download all of this already. Oh, you mean my tables I created for all the hologram scripts? No, those are separate. If you're talking about the ones I created for configuration. Sorry, I had to think about that. Because I don't, it's not in, yeah, those aren't part of this, because that's a separate configuration. You have to set up the jobs separately and stuff like that, and not everybody uses that. So, but thank you for knowing about that, because I haven't had anybody ever ask me about my configuration tables for all the hologram scripts ever. I know someone knows about them now, so it wasn't a total waste of time putting them on GitHub. So now we're going to set up all the hologram scripts. I'm basically just setting an instance saying, hey, we're going to back it up to the F drive at data. We're going to clean up after a week. My email operator is going to be DBA for the jobs. As far as installing it, you run a one-line command. It downloads it from the internet, the newest, greatest stuff. And this is why I don't do it part of mine, because I don't have the newest, greatest stuff. Oh, it's the greatest ideal ever. Yeah. No, he didn't put ever, darn. But you can actually put replace existing and replace everything. It'll install the whole solution if you tell it to, and install the jobs. And we tell it to go ahead and log everything to the table. That means it'll actually put everything into that table in the master database and tell it, hey, it did X, Y, Z for everything that it ran. And we give it the cleanup time, and we tell it to backup location. So this will give us the defaults for all the jobs. And as you can see, it's streaming it down from the internet and installing it. And if VS Code looks wonky, I gotta figure out what's going on there. I have to. So now we're just going to schedule the jobs. We're going to schedule our full backups to run Sunday at midnight, and we're just going to loop through jobs and schedule them. If they haven't been scheduled, we're going to schedule them. I just kind of wrote these scripts where they were repeatable for you. They're not actually, they didn't exist before. Then we're going to schedule our other jobs to run at certain intervals. And I did different types of schedules, so you guys would have different ways of doing them, daily, midnight, every other day, every 15 minutes for logs, a specific point in time for integrity checks, and different things like that. And that's all I'm doing for those jobs of his. Because that's one thing it complains about too after you install jobs. Hey, these jobs don't have schedules, which is a valid point. Every job should have a schedule. My highlighting skills are off today. Now, those jobs have a schedule. They're not done quite having a schedule yet. We're going to pick up any jobs that don't have a schedule, and that would be like that sys policy purge job that Microsoft puts on boxes that I have never looked at to see what it does. But, it complains about it, so we're going to make sure they all have mail operators. That's what we're doing now. I misspoke. but we're actually going through and adding the mail operator to every single job that does not have one to email us if it fails. Then we're also going to make sure that we have our recovery model set to full for the MSDB database, because that's one thing we want to have. I like to have point in time recovery to our MSDB for if I need to get restores done. You just never know when I might need the backup history for something. So, and then one of the other things is reporting in the report is that we haven't taken any backups of our databases or done any integrity checks or anything for our system databases. So we're going to go ahead and kick off all those jobs so that we can have that cleaned up on the report. And because they run so quickly, because we only have system databases, we can actually go ahead and run our report again. And wait, of course. And we had 85 failures, so we can see how many failures we have after that. So we can actually go back for more questions again. So anybody have any more questions? NC10's brilliant idea about my scripts. No, I'm just kidding. If anybody has questions about those scripts, I can explain what they actually do. So, or tables, or anything in the presentation. While we wait our 1 minute or 2 minutes for our nice pretty report to produce itself. But this is a nice way to like very easily go through every server by default have a schedule set up that runs your jobs. You have it set up the same way everywhere, every time. You have the same email operators sending out to the same address, the same alerts that, hey, this job failed. This is happening on the server. You have your integrity checks already set up. Your index optimized jobs already set up. Of course, you probably don't want to run them all at the exact same time on every server, because then your SAN admins aren't going to like you. Neither will most of your systems in the middle of the night if you're running them all at the same time. But, you know, you get the point. You can customize as you go. But at least you have a baseline script to go ahead and get everything set up the way you want it. And you know that everything will be set up consistently because you have the same set of scripts running to get things going. And you know you'll be using the same set of scripts. And then anytime Alla makes changes to the GitHub and you have like a 6-month cycle to evaluate what's changed, and if you need to make changes, you can literally go in and install his new scripts just by running DBATools on all your servers after you test them and stuff. And you see if you need to make changes to the jobs. And there's other tools you can install with DBATools as well that we will see, even though they're not required by DBACHECKS. So now we're down to 40 failures. So we're getting there, aren't we? Aren't we pleased? I'm pleased. So I don't remember how many we had. We had a lot, but we're down. We're getting there. We're down to like single digit thingies that we need to fix. Valid job owners. How do we get invalid job owners? Oh, that's because I have my job owner changed to something besides SA. So that's okay. I think I fixed that. That's part of our thing. So now we've got all our miscellaneous stuff to clean up. Our one-off things are saying, hey, I need my optimize for ad hocs turned on and stuff like that. So again, we're gonna have to ignore the little blue box thing that keeps popping up. It's so annoying. I can't ignore it. I'm sorry. It'll look better if it's not there. can't do it. And my OCD is like, no, make it go away. Oh, it came back. No, it didn't. I forgot all these PowerShells open. Delete, 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 delete. Oh, I did too many deletes. I'm sorry, my OCD couldn't take it. I'll try again. I promise not to do it again on you guys. I'll just put up with whatever messiness is happening and try to figure out what happened to it in between my first run and my second run. For the next go around. For the poor captive audience the next time. It's so weird. Can't tell if it's working if it's not returning anything down at the bottom. Okay, so I changed my ad hoc workloads so we can get rid of that word. We don't want we want our remote admin connections turned on, so our DAC, so that if something happens, we can get that low level connection turned on in to troubleshoot things. We want our backup compression turned on because, you know, things run liquidly split when we're compressing things these days. It doesn't take up too many resources. We want to turn remote access off for security reasons. We want SP who is active turned on. If you hadn't heard of that tool, you want to have that. It's a lot better than SP who and who to and things like that. You'll notice here it's also giving us a warning that in order for remote access to actually be set, SQL Server has to be restarted. So anytime you do a SP configure command inside of DBATools, it will give you that warning that you actually need to restart SQL in order for it to take effect. It won't actually do it for you. So just like if you were doing it inside of SSMS. So we're going to go ahead and install Atom Mechanics, who is active, and it gets that right out of GitHub as well. If I can tell that it's doing it. Oh, here we go with the blue thing again. I like to have Brent stuff on there because there's some cool stuff in there around plan caching and indexing and stuff like that, and some basic nice stuff there as well. All these free community stuff are just nice to have. Some things I'm not going to install that you can install with DBATools if you want to or can run. We got the SQL Watch.io project that's going on for monitoring your servers. You can, I think I actually run the Glen Allen Berry scripts here in a little bit, but they have the ability to run all the Glen Allen Berry's diagnostic scripts against your server and output them to CSV files for you. So that's pretty slick. Now, another alert is about your MSDB not being set. And the only database we have on here, technically, that it can be set on is your MSDB database, but you can't even set that using the GUI inside of SSMS. It's kind of like a hidden thing from Microsoft, but that you don't even know that you can set it. So we're going to go ahead and turn that on. So now that's turned on. And we can actually test it if we want to. I think that command is working now. I think that's why I had it commented out. Oh, it's not working. Or they changed the name of it. They probably changed the name of it on me. I don't think I tested that during our run through because it's commented out. Then for security reasons, we want the SA account disabled. So we're going to do that. And rename to, I rename it to Hooray because, you know, no one's going to guess that, right? And that'll help with my job owners. I changed my config to where my job owner names have to match Hooray, so it actually checks for that. And then I get all my jobs that don't have the job owner or the job owner named SA, and I change it to Hooray instead. It's fun. People wonder what I do to my servers. Of course, they're not named like that at work, so. But we do have a funny name for our SA account. Then I change my auto growth on all my files based on the SQL file I have. It checks to see if any of them are still set to 1 kilobyte or the 10%, because you know those are awful file growths. That they're just awful. So I changed those real quick. I think all like what did I change them to? One, I think 1 gig each. Yeah. So. Then I enable certain trace flags on there because those should be enabled by default. So I get rid of the fact that, you know, they're telling me about all my backups ever taken forever and ever and ever in my logs, because then I can't find anything else in my logs. Then we take care of my tempdb flags. Even though it doesn't need to be done in 2019, it's still being checked for to be on and off in DBACHECKS. And then we have our one to skip for the tempdb for 118. So I'm just setting those configurations because I don't need them for 2019, and I'm telling it, yes, I want this one to be turned on for my server, and I don't want it to check for these two because I don't need it for 2019. So then I tell it to actually enable this trace flag on my server. So now it's enabled. See, it's so simple to do this. This is a lot easier than actually going into the server and going into the properties and typing the little dash T thingy and saving it and all that stuff. You still have to restart the server, but you know, hey. Then I'm going to set my max stop by just running a one line command. Boom, done. Then we can actually go in and run our report again. Make sure I closed it. And maybe we'll actually be able to tell when it's done. I don't know what the bottom's doing. So while that's running, we'll see if we got any more presentations again. Any more questions again. And that is the gist of the presentation. After that, we will have all of it cleaned up, except for a few items that are mostly domain controller related and being on the domain. So after this, I'm just going to show you some other things that you can do with DBATools that are just kind of nice to be able to do, and things you probably want to do in your system. It's just 4, 5, 6 things, and just take questions from here and see if there's anything else that you guys want to ask in general. So we'll see what this report comes up, if it even pops up with the way my VS Code is acting tonight. I don't know what it's doing. I think it's running. I can't tell. Yeah, there it goes. That's running right there. I don't know how I got there, but I scrolled up and down and then that popped up. Oh, weird night with this thing.
Well, I have a question. And so one of the things that we do is, or the auditors ask us, is that, you know, show them the, that, like, for example, we could show them that BI report, and maybe it was run a month ago, whatever. But they'll say, well, how do you know that nothing has changed?
Yeah, that's where you might want to log it to a table instead of producing the Power BI report and timestamp it in the table and run it, you know, weekly or something.
Right. Yeah.
That way you can actually, you know, make your you at that point you end up making your own process. So what I intend on setting up where I'm currently at is running this report, setting it up where it's clean, where it's not returning any failures, and reporting back failures and emailing me the failures. Because there's ability to email reports based on the blog. I'll bring up the blog. It's actually just the GitHub, but it looks like a blog. Let me scroll down here. This is the email part. Visualization, right? Here goes the eMart. They have the ability for you to quickly, with a few lines of code, actually email the results to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So my plan is on a weekly basis to run it and email myself the results and have the same amount of failures, which would on my system be 0. So if I have failures, that means something changed. So the goal is to set this up where it constantly runs and, get it going and get it down to zero failures and know on a weekly basis, hey, if it changes, that means I've got issues going on. Something has changed. And then I think it doesn't show down here, but if you scroll down, you would have the details of what's actually failing and succeeding. It doesn't show the rest of it because, the print screen can only be but so big. But I haven't actually emailed results to myself yet to actually see it because I haven't had access to an actual SMTP server, but that's because I hadn't took a chance to download, Papercut and all that other stuff. But maybe round 2 of this presentation, next time around, I'll make it more advanced and skip over some stuff. So, but that's my intent is as I get this automated at my current job, is to just have a weekly email that's checked all our systems. And if it has any failures, email it to me or just email it in general. That way I have auditing proof of it. And if we have any failures, log a ticket into Jira and fix them. So, and if we have a documented SOP on our Confluence page that says this is what we're doing, the auditors usually accept that.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other questions? Out loud questions? I see one in the chat. So the chat question: CIS and STIG, fun stuff. CIS, there is a blog coming in the next 2 weeks, I want to say, about my CIS configuration. I've actually got where I can run DBACHECKS for CIS compliance done. All the code has been checked into DBACHECKS and is available for consumption at this point in time for other people to run CIS checks. I've got a presentation pretty much built for that as well. And it's going to include STIG when I get that done. I've got another blog post coming about how to set up SQL audit for STIG, because when you turn on the SQL auditing requirements for STIG, it kind of kills you performance-wise. So we did a lot of tuning. I'm not going to knock any vendor as far as monitoring services, but any vendor that monitors your server does a lot of view server state and view database state stuff. It's every vendor. I'm not knocking a vendor. It's just what they do. It's what they have to do in order to monitor your server. So you have to do a lot of fine tuning to be able to filter that stuff out. And Microsoft, quite frankly, tanks you if you're using replication because it does so much stuff. So I had to do a lot of tuning to filter out certain events and things to get SQL audit to run against our servers and get things tuned. So I know a lot about SQL audit at this point that I did not ever want to know. So I've got a blog coming about SQL audit as well, probably within the next month around that. And then I've got a project set up on DBACHECKS right now to actually put all the checks for STIG into DBACHECKS. What? I don't want
What
that.
is STIG?
It's a security compliance for the federal government.
Ah.
And CIS is like a different one for the government. So it's a configuration that your SQL Server has to meet in order to be federally compliant to have certain federal customers on it. So I don't remember what the acronyms stand for.
We have to be CIS compliant as well.
Yeah, but you could actually use DBACHECKS right now to check your server for CIS compliance. You just don't know how yet. because I hadn't wrote the blog post.
Ah, okay. That-
Stay tuned to my blog. It's on my list to do this weekend, so it should be published. So start it this weekend. I've got the code and everything written. I use it at work. I just need to blog about it. So it's on my list to do this weekend is to blog it. So worst case scenario, it will be out not this week, but the following week, because it might take me to the next weekend to finish it. So if it doesn't come out this coming week during the week, it'll be out the next week during the week. So the world will be able to actually know it exists instead of just Twitter knowing that I completed the project, because Rob did tweet out I completed the project.
I'm amazed you find time to do all this.
Me too. I wrote the whole thing in there by myself too, because people jumped in and said they was going to help out, and they were all excited, and crickets.
Yeah.
But I've got 45 items to write into do STIG. So any takers on helpers would be appreciated. No, I can do it. It's not that bad, actually. So, did we refresh our report yet? Did it finish? We don't know. I think we refreshed because we're just down to 21. No, max memory should have been set right. Oh, it's at 0. Never mind. 11 failures. I can handle that. Yeah. That's right, because I haven't patched. And once database mode technically disabled, so there's a way to set that where it doesn't check. I need to actually just leave out that check. For some reason, the failsafe operator evidently didn't work, or I didn't give it the right name. Wanted it to. But we're down to just 11 now out of like the 100 and some that we had. So, like I said, we cleaned it up pretty good. But this is basically the process you go through: is you would set up the tool, see what you want to clean up, what you don't want to clean up, and set up your scripts so that you configure the servers the way you want them to be configured. Then you can just set up this tool to let you know if everything stays the way you want it to, and you can double check your servers to make sure they're configured after the fact, and you're all set.
Very nice.
And then there are some other cool stuff you can do with DBATools I can mention real quick, because I know we're a little bit over. Are we over? Under?
That's all right. This is a great topic.
One thing I like to mention is you can set your power plans on your servers using DBATools, because some servers don't have their power plans still set correctly, and that helps your performance. Your cost threshold for parallelism, which I always stutter when I'm saying unless I read it, needs to be adjusted from the default values from like the Windows basement days. You can go now and various diagnostic scripts and export them to a path and get everything you need from there. You can actually page compress or row compress your tables automatically based on whether it will save a certain percentage of space and then export what it actually did for you to a file, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, I did that on a whole bunch of servers and saved a whole bunch of space. I just let it run overnight when we were like a basically 8 to 5 shop, basically, So it's like, we were basically a U.S. business that was 8 to 5, so it was basically 8 to 8. So I just let it run overnight on the weekend. It was great.
We got one question here that says, "Can this do firewall settings?"
No, not that advanced yet. But no firewall settings. And then you can actually patch your servers as well. You can tell it what version you are and say, I want to get the cumulative update. And if you're on 2019, tell it to get the cumulative update. It'll just go out and get the newest one and patch it. I don't know. Did this answer the SPN question to the person who asked the SPN question? Did we lose the SPN question person?
The answer is yes.
Yay. Yeah, PowerShell probably can do firewall settings. It's just a matter of DBATools doesn't have PowerShell settings. for sure.
Well, at our shop, we wouldn't have access to do that type of thing anyway.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah, we don't. So, and then I have not talked to Chris. Last time I talked to Chris, he was really busy rebuilding his parents' house, to be honest. So I haven't reached out to him. And a lot of his scripts, from what I've seen, I don't think he was using the new SQL Audit. I think he was still using SQL Trace. Because like they switched over into 2012. When they had SQL 2012, you were still using SQL Trace rather than SQL Audit. So I did look at Chris's stuff though, before I started down my rabbit hole of having to do all this crap internally at my company. I mean, security fun stuff, not crap. I've got my auditor at my company interested in seeing my next presentation on DBACHECKS that I'm doing the security wise. He wants to see it because he's he found out I was writing this stuff. He's like, I want to come.
Well, we could make this recording available.
Well, he wants to come to the one I'm doing just on security.
Oh, I see. I get it.
Because I'm actually putting together a DBACHECKS presentation that's just CIS and STIG. It's going to start you off on how to use DBACHECKS and skip all the, the DBATools stuff and concentrate on CIS and STIG stuff and how you go about resolving those issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, modeled around how you do this, but concentrating on the security side of things and how you make your own custom checks and customize things. So round, more advanced round of this stuff. So
Wouldn't mind seeing that myself.
I've got several people on that list. I gotta get past SQL Bits right now though. So SQL Bits I gotta get past because unfortunately I submitted to that and got accepted double over. So now I had started that presentation, the security presentation, but that one didn't get accepted there. So my other two I submitted did.
The SQL Bits?
Yeah, I'm presenting 2 sessions.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. I'm frightened.
Oh, you'll do great.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing a joint session with someone I'm mentoring, and then I'm doing on extended events. We're doing a 20-minute session, and then I have another 50-minute session on mental health on Saturday. So you all should attend. The Saturday part's free. I don't know. Are they making the Saturday part virtual?
Oh, they do.
They do?
No. I thought you said that they make.
I was wondering if they did. If they do, y'all should come.
Yeah. I'd.
Literally.
I'd
They're
like.
doing it hybrid this year. So if the Saturday part's free, you guys should come.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Because I know they're doing a lot of it virtually. So. Look, someone wants to know how often y'all meet. It's the first tech meeting.
We meet once a month, and we meet on the second Thursday of every month. We generally we'll skip November, as that's generally when the past summit is. And,
in other words, come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have the Chicago Suburban SQL Server Users Group. That's a separate group, but kind of related with us. And it's run by Amina Lalani, and there goes that memory thing again. And another person, I can't think of who it is at the moment, but they meet on the Tuesday after we meet. So I believe that ends up being the third Tuesday of every month. In fact, Jared Carney, our very own Jared Carney, is speaking at that one next week, I believe.
Oh, shout out there. Well, I put up my contact info. That way, if you guys had any questions about anything in general, doesn't necessarily have to be about this presentation. I do have a presentations page on my website that has my scripts there, a copy of my slide decks, which, you know, there wasn't very much on there, but there is that one important slide about how to install stuff, which is actually in the code, so you don't necessarily have to have a slide deck. And links to all my other presentations are there as well. And then, of course, you know, if you're interested in the security thing, the blog post really is coming. So, because I finally got everything situated the way I wanted it to work. And the code finally got PR'd by Rob. That helps.
Well, thank you very much for presenting to our group, Tracy. It was a pleasure having you here. And very, very good, very excellent presentation.
I think it's very useful.
Oh yeah, this is by far a very popular topic. Now, I've been recording this, so I'll be posting this. It should be out there by tomorrow on ChicagoDataProfessionals.org, and in the resources tab, you'll see the recording of this meeting.
Okay. If I can't find it, I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I guess we'll wrap this up. And be sure to join us next month. Tim had kindly put the meetup link for the Chicago Suburban SQL Server Users Group. So that's out there on the chat if anyone's interested. So on that, I'll say goodbye, and we'll please come back next month. We'll be meeting February 10th to and we'll learn about Azure Data Factory. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Yo.